Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with the first episode of my new Dead by Daylight mobile series, Killer Instincts. This series will cover the basics of each of the killers in Dead by Daylight, going over the basics of who they are, what they do, how to use them, and how to survive them. These are not meant to be comprehensive guides or showcases of pro player gameplay, but rather just to give you a firm foundation to build on to push you to improve your gameplay. Before we proceed, if you find this video helpful or enjoyable, please slam that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for all things mobile gaming and more Dead by Daylight mobile content. What topics would you like to see me cover in future videos? Let me know in the comments below or on the social media channels shown along the bottom of your screen. Alright, let's get going. Today we're looking at the Trapper. Evan Macmillan was once heir to the great Macmillan estate and its fortune. Evan idolised his father, doing anything asked of him without question, including, it's rumoured, to leading over 100 men into the mines and sealing them there with explosives. No record is left of what became of Evan or of his father, who was found locked in the basement of his own warehouse, abandoned and starved to death. Evan, also known as the Trapper, is an area control killer, able to apply a pressure across the entire map with his bear traps. His perks and abilities are also based on chasing survivors, carrying them to the hooks, and playing on the survivors' fears. At the start of the trial, by default, the Trapper is carrying a single bear trap, with 5 unset traps scattered throughout the environment. Traps take a few seconds to place, and by default you can carry only 1. If a survivor steps in a trap, it makes a noise and the survivor is trapped in place and injured. They can try and free themselves, which takes 1.5 seconds and has a 25% chance of success. Friendly survivors can also rescue them. If a survivor spots a bear trap, they can choose to disarm it, which takes 3.5 seconds. Now, your early game goal as the Trapper is not to go running off searching for survivors to chase immediately, but rather to gather and deploy your traps in awkward places. Long grass near generators is often a good position, as is any choke point near a hook that you intend to use. You can also place traps in awkward places that you expect survivors will run through when trying to escape you, like near pallets and windows. I like to keep a trap near the basement too. Traps camp areas so that you don't have to. Once all of your traps are set, or if the survivors manage to repair a generator, you should begin patrolling the generators fairly aggressively. Try to remember where your traps are, as you'll want to prioritise chasing the survivors towards them if you can. Trapped survivors can be picked up instantly without having to down them first. If you can get the survivor to the basement, this is usually the best hook to get them on, as it can be considerably harder to escape. Thanks to the Trapper's perks, specifically agitation, he can often achieve this. Later in the game, the blood point bonus that survivors get for entering the basement can also make it irresistible to them, giving you easy downs if you're cautious enough. Be warned that if you step in your own traps, they will stun you for a brief moment, and you'll drop any survivor that you're carrying. As you get into the later game, you can get significantly more aggressive. If you're lucky enough to down a survivor near a generator or two, you can patrol the generators and the downed survivor to lure in others and catch them off guard too. A downed survivor quickly becomes a great source of altruism points, and it's quite rare that nobody will try and come to their rescue. Make those that do regret it. Of course, there are add-ons that the Trapper can use to upgrade or alter his traps, and these come in various different flavours. As this isn't meant to be a comprehensive guide, I will talk about the ones that I recommend using and leave the others to you to figure out. Firstly, there are the Trapper Bag and Stitched Bag, which cause the Trapper to start with additional traps and allow him to carry additional traps. These are both fantastic as they reduce the time spent early on gathering and setting traps, and it means you don't have to go running off looking for a new trap every time that you set one. Trap setters, Trapper gloves, and setting tools are also very useful as they reduce the time it takes you to set or reset traps. As a killer, your time is precious, and every second spent setting traps is a second not applying direct pressure onto the survivors. The Honing Stone is an awesome add-on that immediately downs survivors if they free themselves from the trap. This means you can safely ignore trapped survivors for a moment and go after anyone else nearby. Essentially, you force survivors to sit in the trap and wait for you or a friend to come and take them out of it. If they do decide to free themselves, then they're just as good bait as if they were trapped. Finally, it's worth mentioning the Bloody Coil. This ultra rare looks fantastic on paper. If anyone disarms one of your traps, they are injured and thus bleeding. Now, this is useful as it does make survivors easier to down before they heal up, but to warrant using this add-on over other more common ones, I personally feel that you'd need to have leveled up the Wraith enough to have unlocked Bloodhound as a teachable perk for the Trapper. Without Bloodhound, I'd strongly recommend that you stick to other add-ons instead. Now, speaking of perks, let's look at the Trapper's starting three. Unnerving Presence plays on the survivor's fears. If they're within your terror radius, which is to say if they can hear your heartbeat, no matter how small, then they are more likely to get skill checks, and those skill checks are harder. This perk allows you to keep the pressure on survivors and makes it harder for them to heal up or repair generators if you are even remotely close by. Brutal Strength is a simple perk that allows you to break through walls and pallets faster, and it reduces the time it takes to damage a generator. I'm not personally a huge fan of this one. Sure, your time is important as a killer, so breaking those pesky pallets and damaging generators faster can free up more time for patrolling, but there are usually better perks out there. Agitation is one of my favourite perks for the Trapper. You can carry survivors faster, which makes it easier to get them to distant hooks, notably the basement hooks. Agitation can be the difference between a hook outside the basement and the one in it, and that's a huge difference for baiting and trapping survivors. Agitation also increases your terror radius when carrying survivors, which twins with Unnerving Presence nicely. Beyond these, as the Trapper, you should also unlock Barbecue and Chili fairly early on, and this amazing perk allows you to spot other survivors' auras when you hook someone. This gives you immediate information on where to consider patrolling and trapping next. So that gives you the basics on starting out as the Trapper, but what do you do if you're dropped into a trial against him? Well, most importantly and obviously, you're going to need to keep an eye out for his bear traps. When moving to a generator, keep an eye out for traps placed nearby, specifically in long grass, and on your possible escape routes. You don't necessarily need to disarm each trap that you find, and doing so may make the Trapper aware of your presence, but you do need to do your best to remember where they are so that you can avoid them. The Trapper also has a fairly short hit radius with his cleaver, so juking close by can actually be fairly straightforward to pull off, but be aware of being corralled into traps. Well, that just about sums up everything I wanted to say on getting started with the Trapper. Of course, there's a whole load of stuff I've not covered or gone into full depth on. I'm here just to give you a kickstart. If you find you're enjoying the Trapper, be sure to check out other excellent content creators like the fantastic Focused, and keep trying out new things. Are you a Trapper main? What are your biggest tips for using him? As a survivor, how do you survive against the Trapper? Let me know in the comments section below. Happy sailing, and see you in the fog!